Alright, let's dive into a more detailed step-by-step guide on how you can use OpenAPI to define an AWS specification and import it into Amazon API Gateway. First, let's set up the OpenAPI editor, a web-based tool that makes it easy to create and manage API definitions. Here, I'm opening my web browser and navigate to the OpenAPI editor website. You should see a clean, minimalist interface with a sample OpenAPI specification already loaded. Now, as we're going to integrate with Amazon API Gateway, there are a few additional directives that we need to adjust. If you're new to OpenAPI, my advice is to get started with the sample first and get yourself familiar with all the definitions. I'm going to replace this API with the one that I have copied from Amazon API Gateway. You can do so by going to Amazon API Gateway dashboard and then load the examples. And then go back to the OpenAPI editor and paste the API here. On the right pane, I can see all the configurations for the API. And this is useful as I can understand each of the API functionalities. I can also define the HTTP method for each endpoint as well as other configurations. To see all configurations that you can build with OpenAPI, you can go to this page. You can also use IDEs such as Visual Studio Code to build your OpenAPI definitions. One advantage of using popular IDE is that I can leverage Amazon Q Developer whenever I need assistance on building the API specifications. There are two ways on how I can do this. First, by iterating line by line for my APIs, and let's see how it works. Also, as I want to integrate the OpenAPI with Amazon API Gateway, I need to implement the integration. I can ask Amazon Q Developer to create a sample for me just to get started. Or my preferred approach is just to ask Amazon Q to generate the full specs for me. As you can see, I have the full OpenAPI specs based on Amazon Q response. Then I can simply copy and paste the definition into the editor. Once that I'm done defining the API, now I need to import the API into Amazon API Gateway. I log into the AWS Management Console and navigate to the API Gateway service. And then I click on Create API and select REST API as the API type. And in the Create REST API screen, I choose the Import API option. I can upload the YAML or JSON file containing my OpenAPI specification or just copy and paste it here. Then I select Create API. Here's what I really like from this import function. I can review the API first before actually deploying the API. And this gives me flexibilities to make any changes. I can check the method requests, integration response, and I can also test the API. Here, I just need to test one of the APIs, which will going to return a response. And there you go. I can get the response exactly what I have defined in the specification. And that's how you leverage the OpenAPI specifications to define an API and seamlessly import it into Amazon API Gateway. By using a standardized API definition format and integrating it with a robust API management service, you can streamline your API development and deployment processes.